And it's a good morning to the Gelding, as a very difficult day for punters, Gelding, not only because of the conditions, but also because of the fields. Very hard to find a class horse today, Gelding. Your thoughts?
Yes. Good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. Professor. A bit sceptical about today. A meeting at Caulfield where we have grave doubts about the track and how it's going to race, with rain being predicted during the day. They come back from 12 metres back to the true position, which you would think would favour front runners, Professor. But if we get some rain and it's chopped up, so a bit wary of the way the track would run. And I would suggest to the listeners that, we're making these bets kind of 5 hours before some of the races, Professor, without knowing how the track's going to run. So, look, I'd be very interested in the first two races just to see how things go. But, I've looked for things with a bit of wet track form, Professor.
All right, Gelding, it's a 9-race card. The first is at 12:05 p.m, which gives me time to get down to the TAB and put the bets on. And
Yes.
The last is at 4:48. So that's a very user-friendly time. The feature race 8, the Sir John Monash Stakes, a Group 3 race over 1,100 metres, worth $200,000, Gelding.
Yes, a Group 3 race, Professor. So this is the start of, group racing returning with the racing season, the new season to start the 1st of August. Excuse me, Professor, still a bit croaky. Where our 2-year-old becomes a budding 3-year-old, Professor.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday soon to our little joy in Savvy Rocker. But so he's having a nice little spell. But an interesting time of year, Professor, where you get a lot of horses returning for their spring campaigns. So you would normally think these are a better class of horses, but you're putting that up against horses that are race hard fit. So sometimes that can be a bit of a dilemma.
As you said, Gelding, the rail's in the true position and the track currently rated a soft 7. We'd say to punters to take note of how the conditions are weather-wise, because rain has been predicted, so that soft 7 could be downgraded. I doubt that it'll be upgraded. And you can tell the viewers, Gelding, that you were out at Caulfield headquarters yesterday doing a little bit of research for today's racing.
Professor, I was giving that magnificent committee of the Melbourne Racing Club some more membership fees. So, because I know they'll look after them wisely and things like that. And so, I went down there and was just cruising around, having a bit of a look around, and did notice some sprinklers out on the track, Professor. Only a light sprinkle, but obviously unsure of when the rain was going to come, Professor. But getting up this morning, it was a bit wet underground here, and we're not far from the track. So it certainly got another watering over the night. So, look, officially it's still a soft 7. But as we said, we know a lot will depend on whether there's rain during the day or not, Professor. They might have needed just a little bit on the new ground just to hold it together in case they didn't get some rain. But anyway, that happens. And what do you think of that, Professor?
Well, I was just going to say, maybe the Caulfield people who handle the course and the conditions might have got some advice from those who formerly curated the Linton Street Oval at Moorabbin.
No, Professor, it's not a heavy 12. Under the tutelage of Tony Jewell and Ian Stewart, there was local showers in Linton Street, wasn't there?
Yeah, it wasn't raining anywhere else, but that centre square at Linton Street used to be a bog patch.
I have heard Ian Stewart talk at Sportsman's Nights about the local showers. They normally took a 6-pack of beers while they could getting the things on the ground. So
While
very
they
funny.
were watering the track. All right, Gelding, what are your two best bets for Caulfield today?
Oh, Professor, look, as you rightly stated, a very hard race meeting. I said again, looking for 4 horses with good form and also a little bit of wet track form. My first bet's race 5, number 10, Little Jack, a 4-year-old Rebel Raider horse, trained by a bit of an unknown trainer in Alexander Ray down at Cranbourne, and to be ridden by Jason Masil. This horse is race fit and Professor in pretty good form. It's had 7 starts for 4 wins and 2 seconds. So over 100,000 in prize money, Professor. Soft ground, it's had 3 starts for a win and a second. Heavy ground, it's had 1 start for 1 win. It won at Caulfield on the 29th of June. And it won quite, it gathered the horses up in a, just a benchmark 78 race, which this is also a benchmark 78 over the 2,000 metres. Collected them up and went away and won by 2.8 lengths, Professor. So here I'm hoping that Little Jack can repeat the dose for us today and get us underway. I've then gone for the main race, Professor. The Sir John Monash reminds us of the days of McKinnon High when I was in the red of Sir John Monash as the club that you were involved in. I believe you were wearing yellow, Professor.
Yes, I was in the yellow T-shirt, Gelding, Kingsford Smith.
Yes, and I was in the red of Monash. And the other two being, what was it, the green of Mawson and the blue of Flynn?
That's correct.
Very good. Hey,
yes,
no
longer. They are no longer the houses that 2 of the names have been retained, but colours have changed. And yes, so much
what
for
are
tradition.
they now, Professor?
Good question, Gelding. I'll have to do a bit of research on that for you.
Oh, I got you without notice. What a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
So, look, the second pick, Professor, I've gone to Sir John Monash. Again, this is looking for some wet track form. The dilemma was there's a lot of horses coming back, having their first start, compared to horses that are racing at the moment and are pretty hard fit. But I've gone with Kieran Maher and Blake Shin, leading trainer. Kieran Maher, how was his season, Professor? Last week just chalked up 50 million in prize money for the season. Not a bad little return.
We've got a bit of feedback there, Gelding. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just saying, Kieran Maher has chopped up the 50 million in prize money this season. So not a bad little return for himself, with the trainers maintaining 10% of prize money, Professor. A nice little earn.
Very nice little earner, Gelding. We were talking about that off air before the show.
Yes. So, Professor, I've got number 2 recommendation. This is a 4-year-old Shalar Gelding, trained by Kieran Maher. 16 starts, Professor. It's had 6 wins, 2 seconds, and 3 seconds and 3/3. It's wet track form, Professor. 3 starts on a soft track for 2 wins and a second. On a heavy track, 1 start for a third. This horse, has been racing in good company in Group 1 races, Professor. Ran 6th in the Oakley Plate. Is returning. A bit worried it's only had 1 jump out, Professor. where it ran third to Mornington Glory. But I've stayed away from Mornington Glory in this race because it hasn't got any wet track form. So I'm just hoping that Recommendation and the Group 1, a horse that can race, finish 6 in an Oakley Plate, Professor, coming back to a Group 3. I'm hoping that it's the Kieran Ma Magic can rub off on it, and we know what kind of form Blake Shin's in, Professor. Excuse me. So I've gone race 8, number 2, Recommendation. So my 2 bets, Professor, race 5, number 10, Little Jack, into race 8, number 2, Recommendation. And you like, Professor?
Yeah, Gelding, I'm going early on the card. My first selection's in race 2, the Feed Handicap. Good name for a race. Benchmark 78 over 1,400 metres. And I like in this race, Gelding, horse number 4, Sandpaper, coming out of barrier 5. Had 19 starts for the economical results of only 3 wins and 2 placings. So 16% win rate, 26% place rate. It's a 4-year-old Gelding it's a full schnitzel, Gelding. So we're having a full schnitzel on the counter meal.
Yeah, it's a schnitzel, is it, Professor?
Yes, Gelding.
Not a Seamus Award, not a half schnitzel?
No, not a half schnitzel. It's a full schnitzel.
Right.
Gelding, the ownership and the trainer must think that this horse has got a bit of class to it, because it started in 2 Group 3s last year. Now, a benchmark 78 is well below Group 3 quality. Doesn't mind a heavy track either, Gelding. So it's a combination of the Blue Army and Damien Lane. It's got a good barrier draw, and I think it's suited over the distance. It's been running shorter distances with this Gelding, so I think 1,400 metres might suit the horse. Damien Lane in career form, 14% over his career, but 16% win rate over the last 50. James Cummings in excellent form, Gelding, 17% over his career, but 22% over the last 50. So, I like winning form's good form. What I like about this Gelding is I know you can't eat odds, but it shows very good each way value at the moment, showing 950 and 290.
I like it, Professor, and do note that it has won over 1,400, Professor, one of its 3 wins.
Yes, Gelding.
And as we always say, well, beautifully bred by Schnitzel out of Smooth, and the Blue Army just place their horses in the right type of race. And as you said, coming back in class, and you're getting fantastic each way value for a horse. I was a bit surprised when you told me the odds, Professor, in the pre-show. So yeah, very, very good.
And the couple of fancied horses in the race, Gelding, have a far worse barrier draw. So I'm also mindful of that. My second selection's in race 3, the Jockey Watch Handicap. It's an open 2-year-old race for fillies, over 1,100 metres. I like in this race, Gelding, horse number 18, On Display, and it will be on display this afternoon. Coming out of barrier 6, no form to look at, Gelding, so don't have to worry about how many wins and losses it's had. It hasn't had anything at all. It's its debut race, fast neck rock out of different 2. Purchase price I like in this one, Gelding. It's in our range. This purchase price, 1.1 million. Well, maybe after Savvy Rocker becomes a Group 1 winning horse.
Now, Savvy Rocker was a 0.1 million.
Yeah, we're going to put 1 in front of it, Gelding.
Oh, you got to put that other million in front of it, Professor.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Gelding. So it was entered for Bendigo on Thursday, but it was scratched from that race, Gelding. I think so, because it's going to run in this race. I tell you what, Gelding, if I'm running a race in the city as a debut race, I wouldn't mind running against this field.
Well, Professor, and Mick Kent, having had horses with him before, if they're having their first run in the city, they normally got a fairly high opinion of them. He likes to give them a couple of runs in the bush if they're like that. But if that, to me, that's always a good sign that if it shows them something. Yeah, let's see how it goes, Professor.
Yeah, Damien Lane in the saddle on this one, Gelding, and also you mentioned one of our former trainers, or 2 of our former trainers, Mick Price and Michael Kent Jr. they're in career form too, Gelding, 16% for their career, but over the last 50, 20%. So I'll take that from a trainer any day. And juicy odds here, Gelding, as Mark Fiorendi would say, juicy odds of $6.50 and $2.30.
Oh, beautiful, Professor. Look, I'll also be having, I like it, Professor. Very nice odds. Just noticing one in that race, also number 12, just like Gabby. Out of the Group 1 winning mare, loving Gabby, Karen Marscott. So it was a very good 2-year-old, but it's won a trial at Warwick Farm. But I do like your pick, Professor. And I do notice On Display has had a trial. Just a little jump out at Cranbourne over 800 metres where it was fairly hard held and just ran a nice little second over 800. So nice little prep and good judges like Mick Price. I think I do like it, Professor.
All right, Gelding. So my 2 for today's racing at Caulfield, race 2, horse 4, Sandpaper, and race 3, horse 18, On Display. Now we turn to the very successful Professor's Parlay, Gelding. Another win for the Place Parlay last week. We had at Flemington, we picked Craig, and that was the agreed bet of the day, and it ran 3rd. And Fremantle beat Richmond into Brisbane, beating Adelaide. The Place Parlay paid $7.25. So we're 15 from 27 now, Gelding, at 55%. That percentage rate's going back up.
Last week, was there a little bit of pilot error on Craig? Do you think they got it? Do you reckon he just got a little bit too far back, setting the horse too big a task? Like it ran on well, but was sometimes they can give the leaders, or these horses too much start and almost set them a little thing. But as we said, we got the Place Parlay up, but I thought we were a little bit stiff not getting the win parlay as well.
Well, the other thing, Gelding, is that for the second time for last week, what was going through my mind was we were 1 pair too far back.
Yes. Yes. Agree completely, Professor.
Yeah. So I
don't
think
you like the nice way of saying it is pilot error rather than an S head?
Yes, Gelding. I thought Craig was a good thing beaten. Anyway, we'll move on. We had a win out of it, so the win rate's up to 55% with the parlay. Today's very difficult, Gelding, but our agreed bet of the day is race 8, number 2 recommendation for all the reasons that you gave earlier in the program. And let's parlay that into Sydney at home to beat North Melbourne. Sydney, number 1 on the ladder. Yes, they've lost their last 2 games, but they've got a 13-3 record out of 16 matches, Gelding. They're rated number 1 for attack. Their average points for 102, best in the league, and their defence is the best in the league as well, Gelding, only allowing up a measly 72 points per game. So they're number 1 in both of those fields, Gelding, against North Melbourne, 17th on the ladder, only 2 wins from the 16 games. 16th overall rated in attack. They only score on average 70 points a game. That's not going to get it done against Sydney, Gelding. And they're rated 18th in defence. They allow 107 points per game on average. That's also not going to get it done. So you've got number 1 on the ladder, number 1 in attack and number 1 in defence versus number 17 on the ladder with number 17 in attack and number 18 in defence. The bookies, Gelding, the bookies have got the line at 47.5, and I think almost 8 goals is probably about right.
Probably, Professor. I think that's going to be a very, very one-sided game up there in Sydney, and also being played at the Sydney Cricket Ground. So could be a hard trip for the Shimboners.
It could be, Gelding, and let's parlay that into tonight's match at the MCG. Wet conditions, but I don't think that's going to affect Essendon beating Melbourne, my team. Unfortunately, I've got to go against them, Gelding. They've lost Max Gawn out of that side. That's we was talking off air about that. That's a hard pill for them to swallow. I don't think that no one can replace probably one of the better ruckmen in the league for the last 10 years. Essendon 5th on the ladder, so they need to win this to keep their position and maybe move up the ladder. They've had 10 wins and a draw from their 16 starts. Their average points for isn't all that good, Gelding. They're only 10th average points for. They score 85. They allow in 85 on average. So, yeah, that's why their percentage is around the 100%, just a tick under at 99.9.
Yeah, it's a low percentage rate, isn't it?
Yeah, but Melbourne, Gelding, 13th, average points for 79. Look, that's not going to get it done. North Melbourne only scores 70, and we don't think that's good. Melbourne only scores 79 on average. You're not going to win a lot of games with that. What keeps them in the games, Gelding, is they've got the number 2 defence in the league.
Yeah.
They only allow 76 in on average per game. But I don't think that now if they only allow 76, I don't think they can keep Essendon to fewer than 76 points.
Well, Max Gawn being the big loss because, as we both said, he, the best ruckman in the league. I think that's a generally accepted thing. He does help out that defence by dropping back there and taking marks, Professor. And as we said, apart from dominating the ruck, he also swings forward and, can really, kick a goal or two in a crunch time. But those marks in defence save the games for Melbourne a lot of the time. And just that big body down there enables Lever and May to do their kind of thing. So, they'll be missing that. And let's hope, let's hope, Professor.
Yeah, well, the bookies giving Essendon 2 goals, almost 2 goals, 10.5's the line, Gelding, and I think that might be about right too, although it wouldn't surprise me if Essendon beat Melbourne by more than the 10.5 points that they've given. The win parlay currently showing 9-2. The place parlay currently showing 2-1. The parlay, just once again for the viewers, race 8, horse 2 recommendation into Sydney to beat North Melbourne, into Essendon to beat Melbourne. Now, Gelding,
Nice.
Go on.
Sorry, Professor. I was just going to say nice odds. A bit more than I thought, actually.
Yeah, well, no, very nice odds, Gelding. I think Essendon and Melbourne probably lifted up a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Gelding. Well, on a difficult day for punting, I think we might do all right today, and we'll leave off now, and I'll get down to the TAB to get those bets on.
That sounds like a good plan, Professor.
All right, Gelding. So until next Saturday, and that's racing. It's good luck.